Welcome to a technical elective and AMP info session. This info session is focusing mostly on the fall 2014 courses, and I'm hoping you're starting to think about your future in terms of time after school, what you will be doing, and if you're in a working career, using your expertise that you're learning now in ECE, that could span into the middle of the 21st century. 2054 maybe, if you work 40 years after you graduate. That means a lot can happen in 40 years, technically, and I want you to keep an open mind when you're thinking about the courses in your sort of last few semesters here, and thinking about maybe what is it that I might find more difficult to actually learn on my own, and maybe I should take advantage of the expertise that's here in the ECE department. Now there is a fair amount of information available to you online, but what can you learn now that might help you span this 40-year interval? And for that, I would say you might want to keep an open mind and maybe even take a little risk in the selection of your courses. Maybe something that you wouldn't have thought about that you think might be beneficial to you in the 40-year time frame between now and when you might still be needing to have some of this foundational material. In terms of the fall, I'm guessing maybe you already are aware of how we have tried to organize the courses in terms of the decades that are used, but maybe not, since we now start to put them in many different locations. But you've taken 175, 275, those all have 7.5 actually in common. So the 60s and 70s are the computer engineering related courses. If you are an electrical engineering option, you could take computer architecture, ECE 369A, as a technical elective. That's a 4-unit class, and so you'll want to make sure that you are available for both the lecture portion and the lab portion of ECE 369A. You might also be interested in going a little bit further in your coursework in the programming, which is then ECE 373, software engineering. If you're wanting to maybe move beyond where you think you are with 275, if you're an EE option student. The other courses, and you can see that we have already violated our 60s and 70s decade, but these may not necessarily be confined to the computer engineering option, but you could take 411, 511, which is numerical methods. What does that mean? How do you now integrate on a computer and do it numerically well, or with good numerical precision, and to not have numerical errors dominating your results? Complexity, I'm not even sure I'm that comfortable with what's included in that class, but you might look at the syllabus or look at the course description and see if that's something that you might be interested in. And I'm guessing that's a simulation type class, and you'll be then investigating complex systems from a systems perspective. 462, 562, and the reason I'm saying /562 is those are dual numbered courses, and those can be available to you in the AMP program. All 500 level courses are, but this now opens up even more courses for you. These dual numbered courses, you could take the 500 level, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that when we discuss the Accelerated Master's program. But any of these courses that are dual numbered, you could take the 500 and count those towards your master's degree and your bachelor's degree. That's the benefit of the AMP. It allows you to basically count something twice, once towards your BS and once towards your MS. And you can do that up to 4 times with 4 classes. Computer architecture then is a continuation of ECE 369A. Obviously, if you're an EE option and you have not taken ECE 369A, you shouldn't be jumping into 462, 562 next fall. Maybe you should start with 369A. Computer graphics and CAD, computer-aided design, ECE 467, 567. How do you rotate objects in the computer? What are the mathematics behind that? That's what you'll study in 467, 567. Computer networking, how do you connect up networks? And that's going to obviously be very important in the near future. I don't know what we'll be doing in 50 years or what you'll be doing. I'm not sure I will still be here, but you'll be gainfully looking at these problems in a computer networking environment if that's a class that you pursue. Artificial intelligence is 479, 579. And again, if you're wanting to maybe expand beyond your normal boundaries and you're not typically taking computer engineering related courses, you're an EE type, maybe you might want to consider AI. People might be talking about these different algorithms or different processes, and it might be helpful to know the language and even maybe be able to jump into that research area or that particular topical area. Those are computer related courses, and those take up a couple of decades and even more in terms of the numbering. The 50s are electronics, think 351C, 352, or bioengineering. Do we have any bio? Maybe we don't in the fall per se, but here we have, if you're a computer engineering option, you might take the follow-on class that follows 351C. This is the second semester of electronics or analog integrated circuits. 352 is device electronics, Schrodinger's equation, maybe some quantum mechanics, or at least trying to understand quantum mechanics. ECE 352, you could take that as a technical elective if you're in the computer engineering option. 415 is microelectronic manufacturing and environmental issues. I'm not sure that I'm getting the title right, but these classes are actually not only dual numbered, but they're cross-listed, meaning you will be taking those with other engineering majors or maybe even science majors. But this class is probably a chemical engineering class, maybe a material science class, and that gets into microelectronic manufacturing. And another class similar to that is 446, which is semiconductor processing. Those are cross-listed in addition to being dual numbered, and so you might see those as many different varieties. Maybe it'll be chemical engineering 446, 546. Question? Most of these classes, the question was, which of these are offered in the spring? Don't assume any of them are. So once we get to the 400 level, they pretty much occur once a year. So only think about, that's what I'm hoping you're starting to think about now, is planning a year in advance. And some of these will be prerequisites to others. But 304A, traditionally we've offered the junior level, the 300 level classes more than once a year. We may not be able to do that going forward. So I'm trying to, and thanks for asking the question, 352 may not be available in the spring. Neither will maybe 304A. It's not available this spring, so you'll want to load up. If you think you want to take these classes, take them in the fall. Yes? 351C, the top two are actually follow-on. Well, 352 is not so much a follow-on, but I think it would be helpful to have already had 351C. The definite follow-on is ECE 304A. 304A, and isn't that logical? 352 is followed by 304? No. But we used to have the labs and the lectures separated, and it used to be 301 was the lab associated with 351. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. And 302 used to be the follow-on lab associated with 304. Now 302 and 304 become 304A as a lecture lab class, and that follows logically then 351C. No, it doesn't, but that's the connection. And I think now the computer, we're trying to train it to know what prerequisites are required, and if you try to enroll in some of these and you don't have the prerequisites, it's going to give you a error message. I don't know what it gives you, but it gives you something, and then you have to go creaming and begging to Marissa in the undergraduate or undergraduate advising office. And she's just going to say, that's what's required. So I'll save you a trip. But yes, the prerequisites are important. Did I answer the questions? It's not necessarily clear what follows from what. So it is important to try to understand. In an ideal world, it would make sense. They would start continuing to get higher and higher numerically if they were follow-on classes, but in some cases they do not. The 80s are electromagnetics and optics, and again, we don't necessarily hold real true to that. But if you're a computer engineering major and you want to learn a little bit about electromagnetics, Maxwell's equations, if you want to be able to wear that on your shirt and know what it means, then ECE 381A is for you. If you're an EE major, you're already taking that. 486 is or 381A is a prerequisite for 486. 486 is microwave circuits, so that's the frequency range or interval that you're dealing with, and you're dealing with passive circuits. There's another class in the spring, 488, that's a follow-on to 486. There's a three-course sequence, 381A, 486, and 488. So the curriculum is really designed for you to begin taking your classes in the fall and finishing up with your technical electives in the spring. That may or may not be your case. 459 is not necessarily in the 80s, but it's sort of a bridge between electronics, optics, and when you're dealing with optics, it's electromagnetics. So 459, 559 is fundamentals of optics for electrical engineers. And I would read that electrical and computer engineers now with our particular Bachelor of Science degree. And I should have made this caveat to begin with. These aren't set in stone. Hopefully this will happen, but make sure you're checking in occasionally that these classes, I just found out this morning that one class that we were hoping to offer, it won't be offered. So it will be offered in the spring. It's 414A, 514A, which is, so if you were already registered for it, Marissa's already sent out the email. I don't know how many were already registered for it. 3. Ouch. Okay. And if you are interested in signals and systems types classes, more of those actually are taught in the spring, but there is a controls class, 541A, 541A, automatic control. That's the analog or continuous time control class. I'm planning to teach that in the fall. Like I said, nothing set in stone, but that's, so if that makes or breaks that decision, watch closely, and if I'm not teaching it, then you can register for it, right? Then 430, 530 is optical communication systems. So when we talk of signals and systems, we're talking communications, signal processing, and control. Those are sort of 3 sub-areas within signals and systems traditionally. And those have traditionally been in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. The 20s are signal processing, the 30s communication, and the 40s control, those decades. this is what I get to study, is trying to figure out where to put what, and we've tried to, although it's not as easily done as I would like. We would love not to have more than one class in a box. We can't do that, and it would be nice to move some of these around, but this tells you the time of day for those different classes. For example, if you're interested in 441, 541, the controls class, that's going to meet at 8 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you're going to have to learn to get up at 8 o'clock anyway, sometime when you're in your working career. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you'll be allowed to have a flexible schedule. But that then allows us to move other classes in the rest of the day. But you'll see that Tuesdays and Thursdays are when a lot of the classes are offered. And what you'll need to do is keep this in mind. So I wouldn't blindly say, I'm going to take these 6 classes and then go, oh, 4 of those are at the same time. I guess I won't take those. So sort of keep this, and I'll have this posted, and you can get this, and then you'll be able to sort of, as you're planning out your schedule, say, okay, I can take this one, I can take that one, and they don't overlap. That's the purpose of this. And right now, I think this is accurate. But it's not consistent with what the computer is telling us. We have requests in right now to make this what we want. Meaning 381A is listed presently at 2 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the U of A system. We're trying to get that changed to 10 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So some things, I hope this is accurate. The computer may not be. The U of A. Yes? Yes, so the R, that's my own notation. That's a recitation hour. And that may meet in a computer lab, actually, so that you can now figure out this 3-dimensional idea or concept of electromagnetic waves. So you need to really be brushed up on your vector calculus for 381A. So if you did register for 381A for the fall, you'll get a notice maybe saying it conflicts with something else when its time gets changed to this time, which is 10 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's the fall. The spring, it's very fluid, but now you're trying to think more than one semester in, and the spring will look very much like this spring. That's about as good as I can tell you right now. So if you're interested in what's going to be available next spring, then you might think about what's being taught now during this semester. In the computer engineering area, and this may change in another semester, ECE 330A is going to eventually be required of both options, I believe. So if you're, depending on what catalog you are in, you may be able to take computational techniques as a technical elective if you're an EE option, depending on which catalog you're in. The next semester or subsequent to this time that I'm making this presentation, I may no longer make that announcement. It may be already part of your curriculum. 369A is computer architecture. Here you have another simulation class of agent-based simulation. So how do ants behave the way they do? I don't know. But maybe you'll learn in agent-based simulation. How do these complex agents function together? 466, 566, if you liked AI 1, you could take Artificial Intelligence 2. And I don't believe they're prerequisites to each other, but I think they would make more sense, maybe, or it would be more globally consistent to take them both. That would be my idea, but maybe not. So that's what I'm calling 479-2. 473, 573 is software engineering. I'll go through these somewhat quickly. And here, I actually left this on there intentionally and scratched it out to remind myself that 352, I don't know that you can count on that being available in the spring. That's why it has a red line through it. 450, 550 is another class that follows 304A. So if you like analog circuit design, then 450, 550 is the next class beyond 304A. Bioengineering, 417, 517, if you want to see how your electrical skills allow you to work with the human body, this is where you learn how to instrument and measure physical biological signals. You now get to walk around with something on your leg or arm and see if you can measure your physiological change. That's 417, 517. 451, 551A is Intro to Physical Electronics. There again, you're probably getting into plasmas and quantum mechanics, physical electronics, modeling, analysis. That's 451A, 551A. In the 80s for electromagnetics and optics, there's where you'll have the 414A, 514A. So if you registered for that now, you can take it in the spring, next spring. 484, 488, those all hinge on 381A as a prerequisite. 484 is antenna theory and design, and 488 is a follow-on, so it's 2 semesters removed from 381A. 488 requires 486. Yes?
I saw that 414 was being offered in the fall.
Yes, so that has now changed as of about 3 hours ago. So the question was, I thought I saw 414A on U-Access, and it's probably still on U-Access. We learned that they're working on February changes, and we're almost into April. So that may not get changed for a while, but it's not going to be available, so I wouldn't plan on it in the fall. You can't add it now. You probably zeroed out the seats. It's closed. Just like that, it's closed. Yes?
Were there prerequisites or previous classes for 484?
484 is 381A, electromagnetics. And that's a prerequisite for 486, 586, and 486, 586 is a prerequisite for 488, 588. So there are some pretty long sequences of prerequisite coursework. In the signals and systems area, the 20, 30s, and 40s, now you have a little bit more available to you in the spring. 340A is now Introduction to Communications, and for that reason, that's a prerequisite, a strong prerequisite for 435A, which is now Digital Communications 1. And if you are taking that now, and if you're in the AMP, maybe you can take, well, I better be quiet. May not be offered, the next class, but we'll see. So 429, Digital Signal Processing. How do you build filters, digital filters, so that you can process signals digitally? 435A, how do you design communication systems, digital communication systems? And so these are, in the spring, these are all digital. 442 is the digital controls class. How do you control things with a processor, a digital processor? And here's the spring schedule now, and so that's the tentative schedule for next spring. And this may be a little bit more fluid than the fall. and that will be available to you. Are there questions on technical electives? I didn't want to keep you here real long. I wanted to try to do it somewhat quickly. Yes?
Is there a way of getting access to this file?
Yes, so I'm going to try to post this file on my website. So if you go to well, let me see. Can I write it down? And now if you don't write this down, you won't know where it is because you can't find it. And I don't know if you can get to this from just I don't know if my page on the ECE site links to this or not, but it's tilde tharp from the ECE website. And I'll try to post these notes for that purpose. Let's now talk a little bit about the Accelerated Master's Program. We talked some about that already, but if you meet the following admission requirements, this is an option. Obviously, you need to be an ECE student. You have to be at this threshold to apply, which is 75 credits, and that's probably pretty easy if you're a junior. You need to have 90 or more before you start taking these classes in the AMP. But another key is your cumulative undergrad GPA needs to be 3.3. If it's not there, then it's not going to work. Not that semester or not that time. And the other thing that's nice is we waive the GRE requirement, which if you just have to pay for the GRE, that's 185, not talking about your investment of time to sit there on the computer and maybe even study for it. So you don't have to take the GRE, the grad record exam, to get into or be admitted into the AMP, the Accelerated Master's Program. What this allows you to do is to take up to four 500 level classes in your final semesters of your undergraduate that count towards both your undergraduate degree and your master's degree. And if you take the non-thesis option for your master's, that would require roughly, well, essentially 10 classes, 30 units. And here you get to take 4 of those while you're still an undergraduate. So now you need to take 6 classes, and you could take 3 a semester for the next year and have your master's degree after 1 more year beyond your bachelor's degree. That's the idea behind the Accelerated Master's Program. That's it in a nutshell. If you have questions, you can email those to set up an appointment with our graduate advisor at gradadvisor@ece.arizona.edu. What did I miss on the AMP? Anything? Do you have questions? Yes? The question is, how soon after you finish your bachelor's do you have to finish your master's? I'm not sure there's a hard and fast rule. Probably they would like you to be continuing, but we now are offering master's courses online, and what I'm thinking is you could possibly take 1 or 2 of those after you've graduated, maybe even somewhere non-Tucson, off campus, and you could finish up your master's degree online and finish the AMP. Marissa, do you have... So I think you need to maintain your status as an active student, but how... but you might be able to take one class each semester, and so you don't have to finish it in 1 year after your undergraduate BS. So if you want to start working, for example, and maybe have a company help pay for some or all of your master's degree, I think that's a possibility, especially if you're local. If you're non-local, we are going to be having maybe, I don't know, no, more than a dozen classes available that are online, and you could finish up that way with online courses. But I do think Marissa's right. I think you can't let your matriculation lapse. You have to stay registered as a student in the University of Arizona system. And the grad advisor, Tammy Whalen, can answer that more accurately than what we are doing now. Other questions? Yes. So the question is, robotics classes, maybe not directly, but indirectly there are, in terms of, so 411, 511 would be numerical methods, but some others that you might not think about, you have a controls class. You need to be controlling robots probably in some way. The other one that you might not associate with a robotics class, now I'm trying to remember which semester it's offered in, is this computer graphics and CAD. If you're taking in visual information into a robot, you may need to figure out, where am I? There's also signal processing, and you might need to do image analysis. So you might do a digital signal processing class to get you the foundation for more advanced image processing or image analysis, so that you can say, oh, I'm looking at this particular, oh, I'm looking at a wall, or I'm looking at the side of a road, so that now you can have an autonomous vehicle and you're more capable of understanding where your robot is in the environment per se. There is reverse engineering the fly, which I think is cross-listed. That's, though, I think a 500 level class, but if you're in the AMP, you could be taking that. That's cross-listed with neuroscience, I believe. And it's, I don't remember the number. So there's a few classes that you could think of that are connected to robotics. The artificial intelligence classes could be robotics related. The computer graphics and CAD. You even might think of this computer networking. You may have your robots communicating with each other, or your robots might be acting like agents. Was that now in the spring? Agent-based simulation, so a 408, 508. You might have a group of robots, a platoon of robots, and now they have to work together in a coordinated fashion. Maybe they're agents, and now you have to figure out how are they going to move through this unknown territory. So I think the argument, the question was, should I go in robotics or electrical engineering? I think that was the question. And I think the answer that you're being given is, maybe you don't want to specialize in robotics. Maybe you want to keep your doors more open and stick with taking coursework related to robotics in electrical engineering. Now you have more options available to you than saying, oh, I only want to work in robotics. Well, maybe something in robotics may not be available to you, but you have other fields that utilize robotic expertise or even robots, and you can play with that even within the electrical engineering curriculum. So I think what you're being told by others, if I understood your comment, was they probably are steering you more towards keeping general and not getting too specific at this particular point in time. We have some, Dr. Fink, who teaches 411, 511, or 330. He does some robotic work. There's also Dr. Higgins over in neuroscience, or I think that's the right department. He used to be in electrical engineering. You could talk to Dr. Higgins, Charles Higgins. He teaches reverse engineering the fly, and he might be able to help guide you a little bit with some robotics questions. The question, which I didn't repeat, was, are there any faculty in robotics? And peripherally, yes. Yes.
Another similar question. I want to get into designing alternative energy power plants, like solar fields and wind fields. And I was wondering also the best technical electives to apply to that.
So if you're interested in sort of alternative energy, I would start looking at the class that I said was no longer available in the fall, but it is available in the spring, the Photo Solar Energy Systems, 414A, 514A. You might also look at some classes that are non-ECE classes that might be thermodynamics or energy related. And those might be, Marissa might have a list of classes, but I basically am focusing today on ECE courses, but there are some classes that there might be a wind type class in aerospace and mechanical engineering. I'm not sure if that's at the undergraduate level or graduate level. But you can take 2 classes outside of ECE as technical electives, but you need to work with Marissa and make sure those are okay. But typically, if there are any engineering class at the 300 or 400 level, math class, physics class, science class, chemistry class, physics.
What about like our circuits class?
So you could look at circuits. I mean, that's one way that we are going to try to get us further down the road energy-wise, is to make everything more efficient. And for that reason, then you might be interested in some of these circuit classes, circuit design classes, which is ECE 304A. That follows on ECE 351C. That will be in the fall. In the spring, right now, we're planning on ECE 45550. And that's a analog integrated circuits class. Other questions? Yes. So if you're in the AMP, you can take those after you've met the 90 plus unit threshold. So you can take 500 level classes after you've surpassed 90 units as an undergrad, is my understanding. And that would be, I mean, in an ideal world, that would be all of your senior year. You would be able to take some classes in the fall and some in the spring, and probably with the capstone, if you're taking that in your senior year of undergrad, you may want to front load or take more 500 level classes in the fall versus in the spring. If you're a junior, I mean, we're giving you on an average 16 units a semester, and you're going to finish with 128. So the 90 is based on really just 15 units a semester. So once you get beyond your junior coursework, you should be at that threshold in ECE. Yes, so now you need to make sure that you meet the thresholds for the AMP, which are the 3.3, and that's basically a yes or no decision even outside of the department. It's a good point. I'm not sure that was heard over the microphone. I'll try to repeat it. But if you don't get that 3.3 threshold until your final semester, you're still available for the AMP. You can then get in at your last semester and maybe take one or two. That's a savings in terms of time and money in terms of taking two classes now towards your master's degree that count both for your bachelor's and master's. You could probably take some math classes or some other class that might help your GPA, and you can take those in the summer. And it, it's a U of A undergraduate cumulative GPA. They don't say what it needs to be coursework-wise. It's your cum. So don't take some art class and get a C in it, which is what I would do, and then make your GPA worse.